Zhang Ailing's Blockade. What can be talked about may not be love. Love in Zhang Ailing's novels has always been very awkward, and Blockade is no exception. This short story of about 10,000 words was first published in the second issue of Shanghai's Heaven and Earth magazine in November 1943. Hu Lancheng read this novel and marveled at how talented the author was. So he asked Yan Ying, the editor-in-chief of Tiandi magazine, for the author's address and wanted to visit him. Lockdown cleverly sets up a temporary closed space, where some things happen that would not happen under normal circumstances. The male protagonist Lu Zongshen is an accountant, married, 35 years old, and has a 13-year-old daughter. The heroine Wu Qiyuan is a university teacher, unmarried, and 25 years old. On the tram during the lockdown, they had a love-like relationship. Everyone has an unknown side. Due to the Japanese raids, the normally running trams had to be blocked for a period of time. The lockdown bell rang, and people outside the carriage scrambled and fled in all directions. At this time, the carriage became a peaceful place. The people in the car briefly forgot their identity in the real world. But as a real person, the desires hidden deep in their hearts could just be released. In real life, Wu Qiyuan is a typical good girl, a good daughter at home and a good student at school. After graduating from college, she worked as a teaching assistant at her alma mater. On the surface, Wu Qiyuan feels very depressed. She has never studied abroad, and many students look down on her, intentionally or unintentionally showing contempt and unreasonableness towards her. Although she teaches in a university and has set a record for female employment, but her parents hope she can find a rich man to marry. Ever since he was a child, Wu Qiyuan has been very obedient and followed the requirements of his parents and school. However, as a result, he didn't get anywhere. Wu Qiyuan is actually very depressed inside and will burst out whenever the right opportunity comes. The tram during the lockdown is one such occasion. Just like when she was reviewing students' essays on the tram. One of the essays was written poorly by a boy but was full of emotional catharsis. Wu Qiyuan did not hesitate, took out a red pen and gave it Anna. Normally in school, everyone looks down on her, and she particularly longs for someone to treat her sincerely. Even if he tells the truth without any scruples, as long as she is treated as a well-informed person, she will be satisfied. Wu Qiyuan has a lot of resentment towards those serious family members, but she usually doesn't dare to show it. The same is true for Lu Zongshen. On weekdays, he is a successful accountant at Huamao Bank and has what outsiders look like a happy family. Lu Zongshen took the tram to his official office in the morning, and took the tram back again in the afternoon every day, which seemed to go on forever. This well-behaved and qualified middle-aged man also has many suppressed thoughts in his heart that are unknown to outsiders. Boredom with work, dissatisfaction with his wife, indifference to family, and desire for extramarital affairs. The tram during the lockdown period also became Lu Zongshen's outlet to vent his stress. So he later poured out all these thoughts to a strange woman. In a normal social environment, Wu Qiyuan would not even look at a man like Lu Zongshen. Even if Lu Zongshen wanted to have an extramarital affair, he would not look for someone like Wu Qiyuan. Everyone has at least two faces. Ba Jin mentioned in Home that at night, people lie down and take off the masks they wore during the day. In a quiet night, without contact with others and with their own space, people can open up the hidden corners of their hearts. In Blockade, the entire city came to a standstill, and blocked trams created a space that was completely isolated from the outside world, independent of social rules. In this environment, people tend to show their repressed side. As a result, Lu Zongshen and Wu Qiyuan seemed to be people from two worlds who had an intersection in reality. Love with impure motives should end in vain. There was a relative in the carriage that Lu Zongshen hated, his wife's cousin, and he was deliberately trying to take advantage of his daughter. In order to scare off this cousin, Lu Zongshen turned to flirt with a strange woman, Wu Qiyuan. I must report everything to his wife. It's okay to make her angry. Who asked her to get such a cousin for him? She deserves to be angry. And Wu Qiyuan is also willing to accept ambiguity. She was ostracized in school and her family was dissatisfied with her current situation. If suppressed for too long, a good girl will also develop a rebellious mentality. Those spotless good people, she hated them. They had had enough of coaxing her. They wanted her to find a rich son-in-law. Zongshan had no money but had a wife. It would be nice to make them angry. Guess, deserve to be angry. Lu Zongshan's flirtation played into Wu Qiyuan's hands. Both of them communicated with each other with a spirit of anger. The strange thing is that they both look like they are truly in love. Lu Zongshan gradually became very interested in the woman in front of him and poured out his heart to her. He complained about his boring job, slandered his boring wife, and even threatened to divorce his wife and marry this woman he had just met. In a daze, Lu Zongshan seemed to have found a truly perfect partner. She understands everything and forgives you for everything. When you tell the truth, she feels sad for you. When you tell lies, she smiles, as if to say, look at your mouth. In the block train, it doesn't matter if the suppressed self is released. When Wu Qiyuan faced this man who seduced her, not only was she not disgusted, but she was very happy. A real person. Not very honest. Not very smart, but a real person. She suddenly felt hot and happy. But when the blockade was lifted and the tram started moving forward, the relationship came to an abrupt end. Lu Zongshan suddenly stood up, squeezed into the crowd, and disappeared. Wu Qiyuan turned her head away and just ignored her. If he is gone, to her, he is as good as dead. Everything returned to normal, and everyone became normal people again. They were just strangers they met in the car. Is Lu Zongshan really gone? The lights were on in the tram, and when she opened her eyes, she saw him sitting in his original seat far away. She was shocked. It turned out that he didn't get out of the car. Wu Qiyuan completely gave up all illusions, and it turned out that it was just a real and illusory dream. The two people thought they were in love in the blocked car, as if the other was their destined soulmate. They were in love, and he told her a lot of things, endless words, but it didn't bother her. Men in love always like to talk, and women in love always like to listen. However, after returning to their normal state, the two of them continued to disguise themselves and continued to be respectable people. Did they ever love? After waking up from the dream, Lu Zongshan returned home. He still remembered what happened on the tram. But Qiyuan's face was a little blurry. He didn't remember what she said. But he remembered his own words very clearly. Gently, how old are you? Impassionedly, I can't let you sacrifice your future. You see, when recalling, Lu Zongshan only focused on his own performance. But what the woman said, what she did, and even what she looked like had been forgotten. Lu Zongshan had never loved Wu Qiyuan at all. If it were any other woman, Lu Zongshan would have had a lively chat with her on the tram. For Wu Qiyuan, if it were any other man, she would also accept the ambiguity. The motives of both parties are not pure. This short-lived affair is destined to be like a passing cloud, blown by the wind, leaving no trace. The cowardly resistor can only take off his mask for a short time. The love on this tram started inexplicably and ended hastily. Zhang Ailing said it best, human beings have lived like this over the years. Which shows that whether madness is madness, there is still a measure. Lu Zongshan poured out his accumulated complaints to Wu Qiyuan, and Wu Qiyuan also experienced the pleasure of being recognized. Both of them took off their masks and became temporarily crazy. But they were both sober. Once they returned to reality and normalcy, the two men and women who had just been talking about getting married became irrelevant people again. Ultimately, Lu Zongshan and Wu Qiyuan themselves are cowardly resistors. Although Lu Zongshan received higher education, he followed the rules and lived a trivial, mediocre and boring life. Life looks decent on the outside, but it's a mess on the inside. He has no own position on marriage. His wife was chosen by his mother, who has not even graduated from elementary school and has a bad temper. He once objected, but was attracted by the other party's beautiful appearance and accepted the marriage. Lu Zongshan is also very indifferent to work. He is busy every day, but he is not interested in work at all. He just wants to make money, and I don't know who he makes it for. Just repeating boring work mechanically, like the tram running on time every day. There is an ideological gap between him and his uneducated wife. Despite his long-standing dissatisfaction, he still goes to the most difficult-to-find alley in the twists, and turns to buy the buns his wife wants and take them home. Even though he had thoughts of extramarital affairs, and even though he was momentarily attracted to the woman in the car, he finally decided, I can't get a divorce, I have to take care of the happiness of my children. On the surface, he is a reassuringly good employee, a good husband, and a good father. In essence, he is just a person who is dissatisfied with real life but unable to resist. As for Woo Ki-yuan, he is also a decent person in real society. She is a good daughter, a good student, and should be a good teacher who obeys the arrangements, but she is very tired along the way. She is used to following the rules but does not get real respect and attention. Under the dual pressure of being questioned at work and dissatisfied by his family, he gradually developed a rebellious spirit. But this kind of rebellion is also very weak. She longs for respect and attention, and longs for true love, but she is limited to the persona of a good girl and cannot express it. After a brief period of rebellion, she will still be the person without personality in the eyes of others. The passion between Lu Zhongshan and Woo Ki-yuan started in an instant and disappeared quietly. Because they are both people who are accustomed to obeying and performing social roles, and they have no power to resist. They were sober. What happened in the tram could not be extended to time and space outside the blockade. We are often confused. Is the thing we can talk about true love? Especially in today's online world, it's not hard to find someone you can talk to. Zhang Ailing has already answered with Blockade. What can be talked about is not necessarily love. Of course, love requires both parties to have a common language, but if it is for the purpose of passing time, relieving loneliness, and releasing stress, no matter how long the conversation is, it will only be an illusion, not real love. To boring people played a boring game at a boring time. Such feelings come and go quickly.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.